Hi, everyone. It's 2 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Can everybody hear me and see me okay? All good? Awesome. So thank you so much for joining us today for Sail Through the Standards LEAP. My name is Jan Moody, and my job here at Edulastic is to work with teachers like you and connect you with our really amazing resource, and then also help you connect with each other. So I really encourage you to interact with one another using the chat throughout this entire webinar. We want this to be an interactive experience for everyone. So again, thank you for joining us today for Sail Through the Standards. We also have a great panelist today, and her name is Katrina Golden. She's a computer teacher in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and she's presented in Edulastic webinars before and always done a really great job. So look forward to that presentation. I'm sure it will be awesome. Before I pass things off to Katrina, there are just a few housekeeping things that we need to go over. First is the chat. I just mentioned this, but please use this throughout the entire webinar to ask questions or add any commentary or insights. Again, we want this to be really interactive and for you to leave here today with all of your questions answered. I'm in a room right now in our office in Fremont, California, and I have some colleagues here. And then we also have a CSM, Customer Success Manager, on the line, and his name is Bill. And we will all be working together to answer all of your questions today. So that's a nice segue into my next comment, which is about the chat bubble. And at the bottom of your screen, there's a little chat bubble, an icon. And I encourage you to use this throughout the webinar to ask any official questions that you may have. We will have a designated Q&A time at the end, and we'll also be answering questions throughout. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the webinar. So I'm sure that many of you are already familiar with Edulastic, but it's important to just kind of give a little brief overview of what Edulastic is for those who are brand new. So Edulastic is an online digital assessment platform for K-12 students, teachers, and districts. There are over 30 question types, and those are tech-enhanced items. There are over 35,000 items in the Edulastic Certified Item Bank that you can assign to your class. There are over 30,000 publicly available assessments that you can also assign to your class. And then some things that teachers really love about Edulastic, and one of my personal favorite things about Edulastic, are the really powerful data reports that are available to you. And I know that Katrina is going to give a lot of information on this later. But you can track standards, and there's a lot of really great mastery reports that have graphs and data and colors and just so many things that you can dive into to really understand how you can best adjust your instruction to meet all of your students' needs. This last bullet point is what I really wanted to focus on today, and that's that Edulastic really mimics the look and feel of state tests, specifically LEAP today. And I'll go into this more later, and I know that Katrina is going to talk about this a lot as well, but teachers really love this, that when students are taking an assessment on Edulastic, it feels like they're taking a state test. Lastly, pertaining to the slide, I wanted to mention that today's webinar will focus on Louisiana State Test Prep. That's the LEAP test. But if you are looking for kind of an overview of Edulastic and you're looking to learn the basics of your Edulastic teacher account, I encourage you to check out an Edulastic 101 webinar. And I think that Roy can share the link to that in the chat, as we just had an Edulastic 101 webinar a couple weeks ago. So here's some information on LEAP. I know, of course, Katrina is the expert on this and is going to speak on this later, but I wanted to give a little bit of background. It stands for Louisiana Educational Assessment Program, and it's given to grades 3 through 8 across the state of Louisiana. And it's given in the 4 main subjects, so that's ELA, science, math, and social studies. Recently, in recent years, it has been switched to a computer-based test, and this is one of the reasons why Edulastic is so great to prepare for LEAP. Because it really helps students understand how to take a test on a computer like they're going to during the state assessment. So if they're taking the test on Edulastic, it allows them to practice with those tech-enhanced items and with those various technology skills that they need to be successful on LEAP. All questions on the LEAP test are aligned to Louisiana student standards, and then the LEAP test also includes Desmos, which we also have on Edulastic. So I wanted to point out that on Edulastic, we have all of the released items that the Louisiana Department of Education releases. And in order to find these, you can log into Edulastic. You can go to the assessment library, and you can search for LEAP up in this little search bar up here. And all of these great assessments will pop up, and you either can assign them as is, or you can edit them and tweak them and kind of make them exactly fit the needs of your class. So I encourage you to do that. And if we have time at the end of the webinar, I can show you how to access all of this on Edulastic. So these are some screenshots of what some questions might look like on the LEAP test. And the reason that I wanted to point this out was because the next slide will show what questions on Edulastic look like. So this first one is a keypad input task. And so in order for students to be successful on a question like this, they would need to understand how to use this little math calculator that you see here. And as I just said, I will dive into this a little bit more on the next slide when I show the Edulastic version of this question. Also on the LEAP test, students are going to be faced with some drag and drop questions. And so this is what that might look like. And then on this slide, we see that these are what those questions look like on Edulastic. So they're very, very similar. Here's a little math calculator, and then here's the drag and drop question. So by practicing on Edulastic, students are able to really understand how to tackle the question and how to not get thrown off by the format of the question so that they can really focus on the content. And that's some of the feedback that we get from teachers, is that it allows their students to practice like you play. So I recently asked some members of our innovator team, which Katrina Golden is a member of, what their favorite thing is about using Edulastic to prepare for state tests. And these are some of the responses that we got. I thought that these were all really great, especially because all of these teachers are trying to accomplish the same end goal, but the things that they pointed out all highlighted different things in Edulastic that they really love. I especially loved Kara's response here. She said, the technology enhanced questions, the ability to have more than one reading passage and to include images or video as text. That way I can create my own questions or also use created ones. There's nothing else like it online. So I thought that was just really wonderful, and I wanted to share it with all of you today. So at this time, I'm going to pass things off to Katrina Golden. Katrina is a K-5 computer teacher in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And like I said before, she's presented in Edulastic webinars before and always does a really great job. So we're really happy to have her back today. And her presentation will focus on how she uses LEAP, or excuse me, how she uses Edulastic to help her students prepare for LEAP. So welcome, Katrina, and thank you so much for being here today.
Hello. Can everybody see me?
Yes, we can see you and hear you.
Okay, great.
I'm going to go ahead and turn off my audio and video, but just tell me when to hit next slide and I'll skip to the next slide.
Okay, you can skip to the next slide. So what we use Edulastic for is the practice assessments. They are to guide our instruction and for mock test practice. Louisiana uses a company called DRC to administer the LEAP test, specifically the computer-based test. And at my school, we have Chromebooks. So it's kind of hard to do the practice test because you have to take the Chromebooks, you have to put them in testing mode, and then you have to return them back to regular mode. It's just a lot. So Edulastic makes this a lot easier for us to give our students practice consistently using the technology enhanced tools and the the format of the LEAP test. As far as mock test practice, last year what I did was I took the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade test and I separated them by session. So the students were able to literally take it, like session 1 for ELA is like maybe 90 minutes. So they had 90 minutes to take that assessment. And in session 2 and session 3. So they were able to actually get some practice in the way that they would be taking the LEAP test. Next slide. Okay, well, which is what I talked about. And also the practice, the big thing is practice using the online tools. We teach our students a lot of different strategies to use for reading comprehension and math. And so 2 of the big tools that they use are the highlighter and the crossout. So the crossout would be, marking off answers that are not correct. And the highlighter is used to, in ELA, maybe highlight evidence they would from passages that they would like to use. In math, making sure that they get, answer all the questions in the task. And it's timed as well. Next slide. Now, the way this will show you how we use Edulastic to guide our instruction to close some of the gaps that we see in that our students have. Next slide. This is for the fifth grade ELA practice test, session 1. And if you look at the graphs, you can see that this very first one, L 5.1, only 14% of them got it right or even attempted to try. And as you go across, you see we have some 57%, 46%, writing 14% across the board. And so that lets us know that the one thing that we need to concentrate on, and with these L5.1, L5.2, W5.2, W5.4, W5.9, that's in one question. Next slide. And this particular question is worth 16 points. And we know that it is with it being 16 points, I know that it's a writing question. It has something to do with writing. So if you look at the three classes, you will see the percentages of students that either completed the question or how they scored. In the first class, overall, they scored 20% on the test, an average. And then for those standards, for that standard that's worth 16 points, only 11% got it correct in that class. And then if you go across to 5.2, 5.4, 5.9, you will see that 11% as well. Next slide, please. All right, so you see question 8, 14%. And if you see on the detailed performance analysis, the same thing, 15, 15. So, question number 8 is a problematic question for us. That's something that we really, really need to work on because our students are not, either they're not getting it, they're not doing it. So, next slide. This is question number 8. And like I said, it's a writing question. So you see the passages, and it's set up the same way that the LEAP test is set up with the passage and the poem that's right there. So they don't have to keep clicking back and forth or turning pages to get to the passage. And then there's the question, and then you have their answer. So for me, this would be something that we would focus on. We would focus on writing an essay that analyzes point of view, and we would talk about point of view and review point of view. Therefore, they were helping them to be able to score more points other than 4 out of 16 on the writing part. Because 16 points, that's a lot of points considering, you have our part A and part B questions, they are only 2 points, but 16 is a lot. And that could be, the number of points that could take you from basic to advanced or basic to mastery, which is what we are going for in Louisiana now, mastery. In terms of math, next slide. It's the same process. If you look at the performance by standards, you'll see standard 5MD.A.1 is 5%. 5% of the students got it right. And that's out of 93 students. So we definitely know that this is a weak area for our students in math. And mind you, I'm ELA. I don't know a lot about math, but I can kind of show you about how to use Edulastic to work for you. Next slide. And this is the question performance. So you see how it goes up and then it goes back down. And again, question number 13, that's the question that has 5% of the students getting it right. Next slide. And when I look at the detailed performance analysis, I can see where the question is worth 2 points, but we have a very low percentage of students that are getting it right. Like in one class, we had 0%. So we definitely know that that's a standard we really should focus on. And additionally, the one next to it, but definitely 5MD.A.1. Next slide. And again, I go to my detailed responses and I see that this is a math 2-part question. And this is the question, and this will help me in terms of getting the math students, maybe they can do extra work on, my school has a firm. So we have the Eureka Math questions, which are similar to LEAP questions. You can also use other online math programs such as Zern or Khan Academy, but it's the same concept. Like this would be something that we would focus on in class, like a whole group, and then in small groups, and then have them practice on the computer. And then we could come back to Edulastic and put in a problem or a few problems as an exit ticket and have them do it online the same way that it's set up here, which is also how it is on LEAP. And the same holds true for science and social studies. All across the board, you can use these reports to help you, kind of close those gaps that you see that your students are having. Next slide. I think that's the last one. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, Katrina.
You're welcome.
I love all the data that you showed. I think that's really powerful. Some nice comments coming in through the chat as well. So thank you for showing us all that. So at this time, we are going to move on to our questions and discussion, and there's a few other items that I wanted to go over as well. So maybe we'll do that first while people are thinking of questions. And again, I encourage you to ask any questions either using the chat or in the Q&A bubble, and either myself or Bill or Katrina will answer them. So while those questions are coming in, we are going to go over our live giveaway. So this is something new that we implemented during this Sail Through the Standards webinar series. So for all of you who are here live, you were entered into a random raffle where Roy, who's in the room with me, just used the random number generator and went down the list and picked a random winner. And that winner will receive an Edulastic swag package. And our winner today is Tara Portier. I apologize if I said your last name wrong, but congratulations, Tara. And thank you for joining us live. We have your email from when you registered, and I will be sending you an email to figure out, yay, Tara, awesome. I just saw the note come in through the chat. I'll be sending you an email to figure out if you would want a computer sleeve or a t-shirt and what size and all of that good stuff. So again, thank you everybody for coming here live. I also wanted to mention that all of you, even though you didn't necessarily win the swag package today, are being entered into a large poll of everybody who's come to our live Sail Through the Standards, and we will be randomly selecting 2 live attendees to win a teacher premium account. So keep an eye on your email because you may win a teacher premium account, which is really, really awesome. So again, continue to ask questions. I'm just going to go over a few quick things before we can dive into those questions. I wanted to point out that on Edulastic, we have a teacher training hub, and this is our resource center. Here you'll find other webinars, links to our YouTube channel, and a bunch of other helpful strategies from other teachers and from our Edulastic staff to help you be successful in your use of Edulastic. So I encourage you to check out our resource center. I also wanted to point out that our support team at Edulastic is really great, and the email for that is support@edulastic.com. So if you ever have any trouble with Edulastic or anything, just in general, I encourage you to reach out to them, and they will be very helpful. We have more webinars coming up. So if you have colleagues in other states, here's the ones that we have coming up. So Massachusetts, that's tomorrow. Ohio, Tennessee, and New Jersey are all next week. So I encourage you to share these with anybody else that you may know in other states. And then thank you so much for joining us. And I encourage you to follow us on our social media channels. We're really active on YouTube and Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And then we'll head back to the question time right now. But at the end, once we are officially done, I would really appreciate it if everybody would take the webinar survey so that we can continue to improve for future webinars. So we will head back to our question time. And let's see if any questions have come in. We've got a lot of congrats to Tara. Awesome. We had some questions on Desmos, and it looks like that got covered. So Katrina, I have a question for you. Okay. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about your timeline of when you start preparing students for LEAP and when you really start focusing on those standards that you were talking about earlier.
We started actually this month, February. This week we began. We basically like I said, I'm ELA. So with the tests having 3 different sections, we have literary, informational, and then like a narrative where you just answer questions. So we spend time using older tests to kind of go over with the students. And, I'll do maybe because most of the task for 5th grade, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade have 2 to 3 stories. So the teacher will model answering questions and reading a story. Then we'll do one together, and then the students will do the 3rd story by themselves, and then we would give them the practice test for that session. So
Awesome.
It takes maybe we'll do literary for a week or 2 weeks, and then at the end of the 2-week period, they would take the literary task analysis, and then we'll start on informational, but we'll still have time to go back and review, go over the most missed standards, the standards that they're having trouble with. And because we don't begin testing until like the end of April, so we have a little time before we actually begin LEAP.
Awesome. And then how many assessments are you giving each week from now up until LEAP, is like you just said?
Maybe it depends. We do it in 10-day cycles. So 1 week it may be ELA and math, and then the next week social studies and science. And then it goes again to give students time enough to kind of work on those skills or whatever. Also with our 5th grade students, because this will be their first year taking it on the computer, our 3rd and 4th graders take the test on paper. And from 5th grade on up, because my school is going through 8th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they start practicing with Edulastic. Probably we've started in January. One of the bigger issues is kind of front loading that information, loading the different tests in Edulastic, which is what I spent our weekend doing for middle school. But at the same time, it's a lot of work on the front end, but it's much easier on the back end when you have data that's instantaneously available on the computer, and you don't have to worry about where did I put this paper, where did I put that paper. So it helps as far as making life a little bit easier for our teachers.
Awesome. Yeah, with that organization, I think that's some of the feedback that we get from a lot of teachers, that you don't have 10 million papers all over your house and your classroom and in a million different
Right. And another thing with Louisiana, with the higher grades, everything they have, the practice test is on the computer, which is the DRC website. And you guys have Edulastic has the same test on Edulastic with the same tools, which makes it a whole lot easier, because that process of, if your school has Chromebooks, it's a bigger process. It's a long process. Like, you have to call the IT people to have them put the computer in a different mode, and then after that's over, you have to take it out of that mode. And then if you have to do it again, it's just a lot of leg work. Whereas if it's a test in Louisiana, we have Eagle, I can create the test on Eagle, make a PDF of it, and upload it to Edulastic, which again is a lot easier. The data is easier to understand as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I think you're talking about our Snap Score feature there, where you can.
Right. Oh, love it. The bubble sheets. Yes. We use that for our LEAP interim assessments for 3rd and 4th grade. And for the reading and math, I would have to go back, the written questions that they have to answer, but that's only maybe 2 or 3. So using the Snap, wonderful.
Awesome.
Great.
Bill, I'm wondering if you could share a link to that in our chat. Oh, there we go. Roy, you're on top of it. Thank you so much. So there's a link where you can read more about Snap Score, that feature that we were just talking about. We also had a couple questions come in from Kevin. He said he was wondering if you lose your answers if a student's computer shuts down during a test. And Bill answered that, and he said, as long as the assessment remains open, the student can return by logging into their account, and none of those answers will get lost. So Edulastic will save those answers for the student. So I wanted to clarify that.
Oh, and I would recommend, when you are assigning the students test, I would have them shuffle the questions and shuffle the answer choices. Because using the computers, they tend to share their passwords and things like that and try to look over each other's shoulder. But even though it's the same test, they're getting the questions in different order.
Definitely.
As well as the multiple choice question answers are in a different order.
Yeah, so the feature that Katrina's talking about there is our shuffle answer and shuffle questions feature, and that's available to premium users on Edulastic. So maybe Bill or Roy could share a link to that as well. I totally agree. We have a lot of teachers give that same advice, Katrina. Cool. So I think that we are close to the end of our half an hour here. Katrina, is there anything else that you wanted to share today?
No, that's all I have.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you again, Katrina, for presenting and for sharing all of your knowledge with us, especially those reports. I think they were really valuable, and I enjoyed looking at them, and I think that everybody else did too. And thank you again for everybody joining us today for Sail Through the Standards. I hope that everybody has a wonderful rest of your day. So we will hang out online for a few more minutes in case any more questions come to mind. But if not, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope everybody has a great evening.